So, kind of still staying on the AI theme, for small, medium sized businesses that are hesitant to adopt AI, what steps are you recommending to start exploring its potential benefits? Because you talked about, helping with efficiencies. Where are some of the first steps of the greatest, returns for most of your businesses that you're coaching?
So in terms of initial hesitancy, it's usually like, let's jump into a screen share, right? They're like, what are you using this for really? And it's like, okay, you just asked me this question, client. I'm gonna punch it in, look what it says, right? And it's like, yeah, you don't even need me anymore. Look at what this gives you, right? But like we have to process this and we have to, so that's always piece one is just like literally flip the screen to show them the amazing immediacy and helpfulness that it is. A typical place of starting is usually with communications. People get really stuck on communications. Jerry Seinfeld famously says the number one fear is public speaking, which means if someone's giving a eulogy, that everyone else would prefer to be in the box than giving the eulogy, right? And communication is just a thing that holds most people up, or they do it poorly. So it's either they're just kind of like, I'm going to be trash at it and just live with it, or I get stuck in my own head. And so this is a place where we say, hey, give some initial ideas or some bullets to the chat GPT and let it draft something for you. And that's where they're like, oh my God, I can take what's bouncing around in my head and not have the 2 hours of work after that, but more have 20 minutes of work after that because I've already figured out the meat of what I want to say. And I'm going to let someone else say it, and then I'm going to edit it back into my voice. And I've just turned a 2 hour task into 20 minutes. So that's usually a first place. And then as they build some trust and also understand the faults of it, right? ChatGPT is a lot that's incorrect because it is, the information of the internet. So there's a lot that's wrong in there. And you have to learn that too. As trust is built on the communication side, then it starts to be like, hey, can we look at some of these processes? Can we think about these? You almost get to start putting some of your playbook in and get some commentary for evolution. We also like to take, hey, we have these goals. Here's what we're thinking. And it's like, hey, have you thought about this? We don't think this might work, right? It's almost feedback on your plan. And that's sort of a tertiary spot that I'm seeing advisors use it as well.
I'm curious, outside of AI, what role does accountability play in driving sustainable success? Like, how do like, is that the main driver? Like, as people look at businesses in the future, like, what's going to make them successful? Like, in your mind? Like, I'm sure you see, is there like one main reason why people fail, or what is it that's going to drive that success for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for failure is almost easier than the success question. I do think the commonality of failure, and there are macro things, the franchise we were talking about earlier, there's been some massive shifts in the weight loss industry that have made that world very difficult that they should have seen around the corners on, and you and I were talking about, and
Yeah.
we won't name any names, but
Yeah.
obviously that bed was not clean, so to speak. But planning, right? Like it always still comes back to having a plan. If you don't have a plan, and I think it's no, I can't think of his name, John Wooden, who I'm sure it's other coaches too, but John Wooden who said, if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail, right? And so there's just a strong commonality of people jumping to step two instead of slowing down to reflect on where am I going, right? And so again, that intentionality that we talked about, earlier in the conversation, this is a key death knell for so many organizations that are just like, I'm going to build the best thing, but building the best thing often doesn't win, right? Like there have been so many best things that haven't come in first. Betamax is such a perfect example, right? I mean, all these things that we know and love. I was looking. We rented Wicked last night, and I was looking at the box office numbers for 2024 because I had some curiosity around, where did everything land up? And I had to go down 15 titles before there was anything that was original. Everything else was based on something that was previous IP, a sequel, a musical that had been on stage for decades, etc. And not shocking at all, but at the same time, like shame on us. Like where have we gone as humanity to not progress, to not tell new stories, to not be interesting? And yet that's where we are, and that's how we're functioning. I think ultimately failure is coming from this lack of planning, this lack of intention, this lack of direction. Success will often be supported by that planning, but that's not enough, right? So now you have to go execute. One of my key learnings in business school, because I went being like, oh, you just need to have a great idea, right? To this best product idea.
Build a mousetrap, and the world will be a path to your door, I believe.
Right, right.
Build-
And then you sit alone and you die poor, right? It's all about execution. And so this is where really slowing down on, yeah, you got to be good. You can't be trash, but you really got to execute well. You've got to have an organization that knows what it does well, this flywheel concept that you're talking about earlier, right? And keep getting better at it and keep driving that. And that's not easy, right? This is all the stats and stuff we're talking about. This is all the accountability. This is, people talk about a business plan. That's not actually like some magic financial model. That's actually like, who are we and how are we going to win and how are we going to do this, right? And that's more interesting on the back of the napkin than the finance. The finance is almost actually just the, okay, does this work? Now that we've come up with this idea, can we actually make sure that the numbers will suss out? We haven't built something that costs more to make than we can charge for it. The financials are second on that. It's how are we going to do this? And then we look at the financials. But I think the success really does come from thinking through this plan and figuring out sort of functionally how you're going to attack it and then just chipping away at that and getting better at it. And the companies that move really fast on this are the ones that hold really, really high tension to we're going to crush in these things. We're going to have very little flexibility around allowing things to, flail. It's like, no, we're going to fail fast and get the hell out because you're going to flunk. Like you have to fail along the way. There's no one that just gets it right every step. But how long you let them fail, how long you hold on to a really good employee because they're a good culture fit, but they have no purpose, right? These are the challenges that we as humans make the wrong call. We work with empathy, but if your goal is to grow as fast as possible, those are often the wrong decisions. Your instincts are actually telling you the wrong thing. You have to, kill your bad decisions, fail quickly, learn from them, and move on.